So today we're going to explore our strategy around Undercanopy lights, how we're using them, how we're altering our strategy to incorporate higher light in the lower canopy, some plant work, scheduling, kind of just look at what's proven to be an incredible product for us as we complement our overall spectrum in these rooms. But most importantly, it's about adding light to a portion of the plant that previously wasn't receiving enough to bulk out and produce top-tier product. This room is sitting at day 24. It's really in a good spot right now. It's already transitioning in terms of our vegetative steer. This is definitely daily maintenance and observations going to inform that strategy. So I've talked about pistil elongation being a big, and bud site expansion being a big part of when we choose to move to our vegetative strategy. So we're day 24, we've got our under canopies that have been bumping since the beginning to middle of week 3. So I think it was around day 16 that we kicked those on. Now let's talk about how we're managing the under canopies. When you look at some of the plant work that we've done, the big thing with plant work always is balancing leaf sites to bud sites. You want leaf to provide sugars for buds. Leaf is going to allow you to utilize your light intensity to maximize overall plant development through photosynthesis. If we're leaving more bud sites on the plant that typically would have gotten removed in our bottom third skirt, which is going to happen for most people day 18 to 21, we want to leave those bud sites as well as foliage to accompany them. So if you take a look in here at the inner canopy, we're still getting rid of the base stuff down here. This stuff tends to be really unproductive. Also, it just has a very tight growth that tends to be kind of wrapped up in the base of the plant. But we're leaving these lateral branches with both productive bud and leaf sites. We still remove the inner at this tier, so you figure bottom 6 inches we're getting rid of, but we're leaving right above this first layer of trellis we left, which, by the way, very critical component if you're going to be exploring productivity on the lower part of the plant, is to have something to support it, because these are going to want to collapse inward to assist in airflow, light distribution. Just like you do up top, you need to adopt those strategies down below. So we've left foliage. We really have targeted a lot of the larger leaves, same concept as to what's informing that plant work above, but we're making sure the buds still have foliage around them. That's going to assist in this process of bulking out the bottom. When do you turn on the lights? When do you do the plant work? I mean, I'm always a big proponent coming out of veg to do a base cleanup. So I would adopt that same bottom third cleanup right when you flip. Why? Because it's unproductive foliage. You don't need it. And you're just gonna have to remove it later when it's already taken up energy that could have been devoted to the rest of the plant's development. It's not gonna interrupt this bottom growth that we're now harnessing for the lower bud with these under canopies. So then as you move through your cycle, we leave the lights off the first week after the flip. They can't handle the light increase. It's just not going to benefit them, especially in our strategy when we're taking a wool cube and dropping it on a bag. You're already asking for a pretty big transition for the plant to undertake, which is rooting out into a new substrate. The last thing you need to do is blast them with light. It's the same mentality that informs the reason why we keep our lights lower and match our DLI coming out of veg right when we flip and we're doing that transition. Why? Because we don't want to stress the plant out. We're going to take 72 to 96 hours as they undergo that transition to keep things very middle of the road. We finish week 1, we finish week 2. Now the plant's hit a stride. It's drinking, we're getting drybacks, we're providing P2 maintenance shots in a more scheduled manner. That's when we lean on the gas. Light is a heavy generative signal. High light is going to help set those buds faster. Incorporating the under canopies the start of week 3 has been our approach. With certain strains, we've pulled it on a little bit earlier, but overall, that's been what we're sticking with. Day 14 to 16 is when those lights come on. Your plant has something to do with it at that point. Like prior to that point, you may just be subjecting your plants to unnecessary stress with very little reward. Now, lights flick on, we then ride the lights out. We're not dimming them. We're letting them ride at 100%, and that's gonna ride until like week 9. So typically we start dimming our lights back overhead to the start of our generative finish, which is gonna be week 8. We start to dim our lights back by 10% every 2 to 3 days, depending on what the run's looking like. We let these ride until week 9, then we cut them off. Same deal. You don't want super high light on a bud that is finishing and ripening. We're taking the same principles with our overhead lights, and we're going to incorporate them with the under canopies with a little bit more of a conservative approach because these aren't nearly as intense. Week 9, we kill the lights. Now, what are we looking out for with the incorporation of this new technology? Now, it's not a new technology, but it's a new application of, what's typically an overhead technology. It's a heat source, it's a light source. Now, that heat load that's going to be coming off these lights, you don't typically have in your inner canopy a heat source, which means you have to be really conscious of how that impacts your overall environment. You have a rise in your temperature. So for anybody who's undersized on cooling, if you are going to load up your rooms with three of these across on a bench, be conscious of the fact that you may see a slight jump in your temperature. I mean, anybody who's undersized on cooling probably shouldn't be investing in under canopy lights to begin with. Sorry, it's just the truth. That's just, I wouldn't be the first person who would say that. But you have a jump in your overall temperature, so you want to be looking out for proper air movement. You want to be mixing the room to equalize at your set point. Secondly, it's about assisting that bottom structure, as I previously stated, with that trellis, as well as your plant work, actively opening up branches. You want to be maximizing that light intensity, but also ensuring that there's uniformity, no hot spots. We manage our runoff values. Like, we look at them every single day. It's a huge part of the way in which we interpret data is understanding our runoff. Your salts jump fast when you throw these under canopies in because you have a lot more drinking going on. You have more foliage that's assisting in the process of transpiration, which means overall there's more salt being taken in, there's more salt being left behind. So what does that mean? Well, we typically kick off our runs at like a 3.5 EC. We'll take that from weeks 1 through 3, and then I'll drop it to a 3.0. I've been going 3.5 for the first week, and then I back it off to like a 3.3 for weeks 2 and 3 because I'm hitting my stack like fast. I just don't need to do the aggressive salt dump that you do have to do under LEDs that you don't find the need to do under HPS. With the additional light, the plants are very active, been running slightly lower salt levels, bring it down to a 3.0 for the remainder of my vegetative steer, so weeks 4 through 7. And then begin my taper week 8. Anybody who finds their plants to be very generative leaning, so heavy foliage at bud sites, maybe not producing the color that you're hoping for, it's basically a warning to like maybe run slightly lower salt levels. I know like 3.5 is kind of in vogue. I mean, I even heard higher rates these days. Whatever blows your hair back, if it works, but like be conscious of the fact you're going to be stacking faster. The other thing I've been hearing about is like other light companies are now spinning a product for under canopies about completing their spectrum. I'm not going to call anybody's bluff. It's just like, well, the spectrum for the LEDs above is quite effective. Why would I be coming in with something that's like wildly different from below? Light penetration, it does have a distance at which it drops off. So it's not like, oh wow, if I throw in this like crazy different spectrum from below, I'm really evening out what the plant's getting exposed to. You really want to see a light that's going to complement your strategy. It's not about like someone's unlocked like the special blue spectrum with a little bit of red. Like, you want a light that complements your growing style, which this absolutely has done for us under LEDs and HPS. I'd say the biggest thing to watch out for is you now have accelerated drinking. And the way that we've been kind of combating any negative issues is, ensuring that our runoff is dialed, volumes have increased overall, more P2 shots because we've had faster dryback, all things that you'd expect. But definitely take a grower by surprise who's not looking at their environment. So maybe this is the jump off point for people to really begin to look at the more focused and informed approach to day-to-day environmental assessments. That's kind of our first installment on how we're utilizing these lights. Like, we've seen such great results both with this fixture under HPS in our grow as well as other grows, and then under LEDs as well. I mean, just like phenomenal, and really, I can echo the sentiments of some other growers when they say it's literally top tier bud that's now sitting 12 to 14 inches from the crown of your plant, which was once upon a time unheard of. I want to do one more clarification for anybody out there who's like, you can't light a plant from below. Now, I understand that's like gets thrown around a lot, comment sections or whatever forums you're on. I thought scientifically, the way that plant biology works, you can't underlight. Well, for the longest time, Dutch tomato growers have been utilizing reflective plastic in their plant rows in hothouses to do exactly what we're doing, which is to bounce light from the sun into the undercanopy. It's like this is not some newfangled thing that we found, and for the competitors out there who like don't even know that that's a thing. Kind of speaks volumes as to like where they're at in terms of their own R&D. They've been doing this for the longest time. I mean, red plastic has been popularized in very large scale Dutch greenhouses for forever. I mean, you can read studies that have been released since the 60s around different colors for capturing light, capturing heat, and then bouncing light. So this isn't new. If anybody doesn't believe in like the idea of underlighting, I would simply point you towards the people who have literally created controlled environmental agriculture, which is the Dutch. So there's a plug for the naysayers out there. Anyways, first installment, look forward to releasing a lot more, but for now, I'd say get on board because this is really boosting our yields in a way that is increasing profitability tremendously.